Go down. So there I was, sat on the train, and this horrible feeling comes over me. It's no good, I need the toilet. Now, as everyone knows, public toilets are always a bit hit and miss. And toilets on trains are particularly grim affairs. But it's no good, I've got another hour left on the train, I'm going to have to go for it. So I make my way through, I'm pushing through the carriage, and I make it to the toilet. The door, 5 seconds, slowly opens. What was wrong with the normal door, I'm not sure, but we went. Step inside. And I think you need to know about the design of a modern train is that they put the toilet down one side of the carriage, they put a small walkway, and they put a row of seats sitting down here. What they've done is they've created a ringside seat for the toilet. So whilst I'm in the toilet, and I'll save you the mile, I hear and look to my right to see the door gradually and slowly opening up, presenting to the ringside audience the view of a man relieving himself on the train. Between me and the audience is another man desperately pressing on the button, trying to close the door to make this horrible scene disappear from in front of him. For my part, there's not much I can do other than embarrassingly look to the right and sort of carry on about my way as the door eventually slides shut. Now, it was a few weeks ago I was recounting this story to some people, and it got me thinking about embarrassment. And I thought, well, why are we embarrassed? What purpose does it serve? Where's the advantage to us as a race to get embarrassed? And I went and did some looking about it. Because it certainly is a powerful thing. If you take public speaking frequently lists up there as high as one of the most worrying things people could do. They list it higher than dying. Really? Speaking and making a bit of a fool of yourself is scarier than dying? Apparently so. And looking some more, there are examples of where it seems to be true. There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. And in this book, he outlines a whole load of plane crashes. Not the funniest part of the story, arguably. But what happens is that these aren't mechanical faults. They're human errors. Human errors are fine. But of course on a plane, there's two people. There's the captain and there's the first officer. And part of what they do is to double check each other's work. And if there's a problem, they need to highlight it. And what had happened in these particular accidents is that the first officer knew full well that there was a problem or likely to be a problem. And rather than standing up and saying, "Excuse me, Captain, we need to avoid that big cloud there, that's not going to be good," they didn't. They made meek comments like, "Oh, it's raining around these parts, isn't it?" Or, "Satellites have been useful for us today." They never quite stood up to it. And this resulted in a whole load of training to make sure that people were willing to break that embarrassment, that the boundary wasn't there anymore. And my favourite story, if it's possible to have a favourite airplane crash story, was one in New York that ran out of fuel. Now the captain and the first mate both knew that this plane was going to run out of fuel. They'd missed their landing slot, but the brash New York air traffic controller had just said, "Oh, so I'll make you go round again," and made them go round again. And they'd said a couple of times, "Oh, we're quite low on fuel," or "We don't really have much fuel." And the last conversation over that radio was along the lines of, "Oh, I'm going to send you back round a 15-mile loop down here, is that okay? Will your fuel be okay?" To which the first mate replies, "Well, I guess it'll have to be. Okay, thank you." 5 minutes later, the plane has crashed because they ran out of fuel. All because they weren't willing to take that step, that embarrassment of doing that and speaking up. So it seems to be pretty fundamental, I think, to our society. And when you think about it, that does make some sense. Because what it does is it glues us together. Fear of embarrassment, fear of shame, fear of being separated from the group really helps us to work together. Because I think fear of being shunned, or the reality of being shunned from a group, could actually result in death. it's no exaggeration to say that if in our evolutionary past you were separated, it would be quite reasonable to think that you could die. At the very least, it would stunt your chances of mating. So that gene would not be passed on. So, if you doubt that instinct is there, take a look at the internet. What's happened is that there's been a great series of things that have anonymised people. It allows us to masquerade as other people. And by doing that, we are then able to act in a way that we don't care. Barely a week goes past where there's not a news story, which shows both sides of this, where some unfortunate person has come to a sorry end because they couldn't cope with the rejection that they were getting on the internet. And on the other side, you have somebody who is saying, well, no one can care, I'm just going to be mean because there's no repercussion to it. So what starts and seems as a silly thing, standing here, red-faced, embarrassed, actually I think is very, very deep-rooted and very important to us all. So, what I would say is, next time that you intend to expose yourself on a train, just remember that. Thank you.